Hello and welcome along to another episode of our Stadium Review series, Review the 92. Myself and co-host Tom each week talk about a ground we visited in our quest to do the 92. And this time we move on to probably the biggest ground of the series so far, and possibly the biggest in total without meaning to upset their neighbours. But after last week, where we had one that was very close to home and close to our hearts, this time we probably go back to one of our favourite away trips, I would say, in recent times. And that ground this week is St James's Park. So, firstly, if you are looking forward to this one or you're a Newcastle fan, please do put a thumbs up on it and subscribe for a weekly episode from this. But we are going to talk about a ground that we very much enjoyed our trip to. So, we went to watch Newcastle v Luton in 2018 in the FA Cup, a cold January day up north. But let's talk about the stats first. We always go through those. So, St James's Park opened in 1892, expanded very heavily in 1998 to 2000, where it obviously became the ground that it is now, as we know it. It has a capacity which is a bit debatable. There's two numbers that are pretty much split down the middle across the sites we've looked at. So 52,354 or 52,388. But it could be that the smaller one, they just have to take out a few seats for security or something, as you've said earlier on. But it's a big ground. It's been used for other events. It was used for football in the 2012 Olympics. It was used for Rugby League, Rugby Union World Cup, England Test matches apparently in years gone by, back in the day, which is interesting to me. So,
what's wrong with Chester Street just down the road?
Well, probably not quite big enough for the biggest Test matches back in the day. So I think that's probably explaining that one. Finally, the record attendance at the ground in 1930 is suggested to be, although this isn't widely reported, so I can't promise it, it's 68,386, because obviously it was before expansion, but it would have been when there was standing as well. So that's probably the reason for that. But it's a ground that has some brilliant, unique features, some statues that we'll probably talk about, some great surrounding areas that we'll talk about. And obviously the occasion for us as Luton fans at the time, on the way back up through the leagues, we were in League Two, and we got a big draw at St James's Park, and it made Luton fans very happy. Over 7,500 of them descended on the city, and it was a wonderful day out. So talk to me about your initial memories of the day.
Yeah, if it doesn't sound too corny, that just did bring a smile to my face again, thinking that over 7,000 people connected to Luton Town Football Club made that huge journey. Because
yeah, it is a big journey.
It's a big journey, isn't it? It's just about as big as you could ask, I guess, for Luton. Or Plymouth's probably a bit further, maybe, but yeah. From where we are, Luton is in the southeast of the country, going all the way up to Newcastle. It's a big journey, and came obviously in great numbers.
Yeah.
You say, yeah. And of course, some people come out the woodwork. It's a big club away from home. You get a big allocation. It's the magic of the cup. So I'm not saying we take that all over the country every other weekend, but yeah, you're just proud that so many had a great day out in a fantastic city that is Newcastle.
Obviously, we've got to bear in mind it was the 6th of January as well, which does bear into it a little bit. I want to, before we go on to the atmosphere and the four areas that we rank them on, and talk about some of the other things outside the ground as well, I want to talk very briefly about the game, because I don't know if you remember the game that well, but the first half, we showed them far too much respect and got absolutely slaughtered. I think Marek Steck made an error for the first, and then we let in two quick goals when Jose Perez was banging them in for Newcastle. And John Joe Shelby got one as well. In the second half, Danny Hilton scored almost immediately. We made changes. Pelly Ruddock went off. We came out at different sides, which is unusual because he's normally very influential for us. Now, I don't know if you remember, about the hour mark, there was a very controversial offside decision where Danny Hilton
scored, didn't he?
He scored to make it 3-2, and it was ruled out, and he was at least 2 or 3 yards onside, as we found out later. And it looked onside at the time.
Yeah, it did. It did look it.
And
it was in front of us, wasn't it?
It was in front
of
us.
Our end of the stadium.
Yeah. I mean, we were in the corner, but it was at that end of the stadium.
Yeah, I had a good view of it.
And then Elliot Lee hit the woodwork off the bench late on. So in theory, on another day, that could have been 3-3. But it's all about if, buts and maybes, isn't it? But a very interesting game. It's sort of that second half showed us just how well we could compete. We were obviously right at the top of League Two at that time. It's probably when I became confident we'd get promoted. And obviously we went on from strength to strength from there because we got promoted and then again last year. So it was certainly a platform for us, but a wonderful day out, a wonderful game of football. And we've got to be fair, the attendance that day was over 47,000. So there was nearly 40,000 Newcastle fans there as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Really, just a great day out. You don't expect much, do you? You think the FA... the best you can hope for is a big away game in the FA Cup when you're a League Two team. You're not going to win it. Realistically, I don't know, when was the last time a club outside the top six did win the FA Cup? Pompey? Were they in 2008?
Wigan.
So yeah, fair play to them. But yeah, you know you're not going to get very far. But if you just can get a memorable day out at one of the biggest stadiums in the country, you just take it all day long. And then Luton did apply themselves well. When was in my head? I think they hold out for the first half an hour. When was the first?
It's just after the half an hour mark, and it was a bad error by the keeper.
If we can get at half time, to build confidence, have a team talk, and then you just don't know where it can go from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were showing a lot of respect, and Newcastle had international footballers in their team. I guess it's to be expected, but they gave a good show of themselves. On another day, like you said, the result could have gone differently, and I think we were left quite proud of what happened and thankful for the day out.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got to move on to the four areas, and that will lead to us talking about Newcastle itself and some of the bits outside the ground. So let's start with atmosphere, which obviously it wasn't a completely packed St James's Park, but obviously in the away end, there's 7,500 fans. There was a very good atmosphere, and the home fans, albeit probably not the regular season ticket holders or whatever, why would they come to watch a League Two club? And Newcastle did help with the ticket pricing. It was still a fairly good atmosphere across the ground.
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly, they had quite like an impressive display with the flags. I think one of like Rafa Benitez on the is it the Gallagher end opposite off?
Yeah.
Quite well choreographed. Yeah, their reputation goes before them, doesn't it? Everyone knows that the Geordies are very passionate and they're diehard. They do support their club. They love their club. They're obviously the only club in their city. So, yeah, I have fond memories of the atmosphere. Yeah, it was a good atmosphere. 7,000 away fans adds to that, of course. Yeah. So, yeah, going to have to mark it highly.
I agree. I mean, the first thought for me is for a Premier League club at home to a League Two club at the time, in a season where the club isn't doing great, there's a problem with the owners. I don't think there are many, if any, other club in the country that could have pulled that gate in and had that support for that game.
No. They don't lose their fans, do they? As badly as they have their run and the scrapping with relegation, selling players, and I think it's quite doom and gloom as far as Newcastle fans are concerned for quite a lot of recent past. Since maybe the glory days when they had the likes of Shearer and Bobby as manager, but
we'll come on to that
statue. They're very loyal and did create a good atmosphere on the day. So should we go straight into the score? I think I'll give it an 8.
I was going to go one better. I'll give it a 9, just because probably being a bit biased because I love the city as well. But 9 out of 10 for me. For that game, to get that support is incredible. The away end we have to factor in because that's where we were. And Newcastle generally, the atmosphere is brilliant. It's a ground I'd love to go to for a massive game. I really would. But it'd be very hard to get a ticket, you'd imagine. Let's move on to location. And this is where we have probably another quite good one. So it was a little bit of a walk. But I don't know if you remember that we had a walk through some good areas. It's a lovely city centre, loads of pubs, loads of old architecture, loads of places to eat, all of that sort of stuff that we like. Pretty easy train route, to be fair, given where it was from. I think we stayed at yours, didn't we, in Leeds beforehand. But for me, I absolutely loved the city, and that's part of the location. The ground was fairly easy to get to, and it had people descending on it, which made it look like a central location, even if it perhaps wasn't.
Yeah, I remember we got a direct train from Leeds to Newcastle, which was, I think, just about an hour and 14 minutes. So not very long at all. I'd actually, weirdly, I hadn't been to Newcastle. I'd always said Newcastle was one of the cities in the UK that I hadn't been to, that I really wanted to visit. And by chance, I'd been in the November just as a day trip.
Yeah.
And then I think almost the next week, Luton. They get the draw, and you're like, well, I've got to go back now. And I was pleased to, because I was already impressed with it the first time around. And it's a very nice city, like you said, nice architecture, friendly locals. And I don't really remember the walk, but I doubt it was too strenuous. And any calories we burnt on the way, we made up for with a very, very good Chinese just by the ground, didn't we? Should we get talking on that? I know you love that.
I think we've got to point out that the basically the last road before the ground is Newcastle Chinatown, and there is a street of exceptional restaurants to choose from. I know it's a very bad stereotype, but the example that's always given of a good authentic restaurant is when lots of natives are there and you're possibly the only white British person in the place. And my words, the food was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was good. It was very good. Yeah, you can. I think I think I've taken a picture of it. You got St James's Park, and then you've got the traditional authentic like kind of like Chinese gateway arch thing, and it's just like it's just a really cool picture. And you're right, Chinatown is the final area of the city just before you get right into the stadium. So perfect for anyone going to a game. Just get a quick lunch. You've got loads of restaurants to choose from, and I hope you made a mental note of where we went in case we ever go again, because yeah, I do remember the food being exceptionally good.
Yeah, it was a wonderful start, and as you mentioned correctly, it is probably one of, if not the most important thing to me when I go to a football ground, bar the game itself. So, and sometimes it's even on a par with it, depending on the game, particularly for neutral ones. So I can't argue with that at all. The location of the city and the ground for me was almost perfect, and I can't give it lower than 9. I can't bring myself to do it, and I don't actually know, bar it being a little walk and there being a hill, I can't bear in mind why I'm not giving it a 10.
You expect to do a walk, of course, so you can't really complain about that. And it's not a long walk, it's not arduous, and you've got places, you've got pubs to have a little drink in beforehand, and great restaurants. And it's quite an attractive city. It's not like you're walking through horrible estates or anything like that, like you do at some places. So yeah, I think 9. I'll match you on that. 9's a fair result.
And that takes us on to value. Now, it's going to be hard to do this one fairly because we haven't seen what Newcastle's prices are for a big Premier League game or whatever. But I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember the prices for that game?
No, not at all.
£10 for adults, £5 for kids.
A tenner.
So on the day, I know for
Fantastic.
Newcastle fans, on the day it was 20 quid if then they hadn't bought a ticket in advance. So I'm guessing their match day prices are obviously going to be extortionate in comparison. But it's a League Two club away at a Premier League ground. Their tickets prices are going to be lower. So it's hard to give them a fair ranking. But on the game we went to, I mean, what can you say?
You got a match at 10 with a 10, haven't you? £10 to see a game at a first-class stadium away at a Premier League club, then you can't have one complaint in the world, can you? It's got to be a 10.
I mean, it's a nice, easy one. I'll do the same. What I would like to know, if there's any Newcastle fans watching, or if you've been as an away fan in the Premier League this year or in the last couple, is let us know, obviously, in the comments how much you paid, what you pay if you're a season ticket holder, and we can probably come back to address that point, and how you feel the pricing is generally. Because obviously the big issue with the ownership is fleecing the fans, and I know it's mainly because he doesn't invest the money back in the club rather than charging extortionate prices. But I would be interested to know what they are for a normal match.
Yeah, me too. You're right. The owner that we all know, no need to name, gets a bad reputation. You would imagine he'd look to grab every penny he thinks he possibly could out of the sport, and also playing on the fact we know that Newcastle fans are passionate and loyal, and they probably would find the extra money if they had to keep their season tickets. And I wonder if someone as what was the word to use? His nature, someone of his nature might exploit that. I'd be interested to know what they pay on average for a game. That would be good to know.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But let's move on to the final one, and that's character. And this is where we have to start to talk about, the area of the ground, around the ground. I mean, obviously, St James's Park is iconic in terms of its look, with the 2 massive stands going round with a corner and then the 2 smaller ones on the sides. Obviously, we were up in the heavens, and that's one thing I've got to mention as a negative is I have never felt closer to death walking to my seat at a football ground than those hundreds of flights of stairs. Jesus Christ.
That might say more about your fitness level than anything else, though.
I had been injured and ill not long before that, so I'm going to take a slight exception to it. But it does say more about me. In terms of around the ground, obviously you mentioned Sir Bobby Robson. There's some brilliant statues around the ground, which you got images of as we went around the ground. It was just, I loved it. The character of the ground, it was everything I wanted it to be. Once you got in, it was still old school when you were going through like the stone staircases and all of that. But then when you got into it, you felt like you were in an unbelievable modern stadium.
I don't think we went in, did we? I think is it the pub opposite the ground called the Strawberry something. It's quite iconic. I think I might have gone in at the trip I was talking about just a few months earlier in November, which has got, I think, full of Newcastle memorabilia and history, which is, again, if you're a football fan, going on a match day. I think have a drink in there. That was informative, cool to go in, and just walking around the ground, taking it all in. It's vast, isn't it? The two stands are huge. It was a bit of exercise getting up there to your seat, like you said. But when you're up there, what a view! Like we always say, we like to see a bit beyond the stadium and you can just like gaze out over the top of the opposite stand, and you get a nice view, and you just get an idea of the scale, the sizes of the stadium. It's class. It's a great place.
It's the one thing I've got to say. When you're in the heavens in that massive corner of the ground, then the opposite side, it's still a big stadium on normal accounts, but you can just see out over it because you're so high up in the heavens. I can't lie, of the 92 that we've gone to so far, and again, it's a huge credit to the North East, that I would imagine when the scores come in, St James's Park and the Stadium of Light will end up being my top two, probably.
Yep. Without giving too much away, Sunderland was also a fantastic trip up to the North East. Only good words about the people. And I think what St James's Park does well is it's a modern stadium and it's huge, but it hasn't lost that special something that maybe like an Etihad or an Emirates has. It's got something unique about it. Possibly one of my top 3 stadiums I've been to so far in my 92 journey.
I mean, I'm fairly sure that when I come out of this, it will be my highest ranked ground. So in that case, I'd have to say it's number one. Obviously, somewhere like Luton's going to be close to my heart, and I love that. But in terms of just as an all-round experience, Newcastle is probably one of my favourite days as an away football fan. So there's no doubt in how brilliant it is. I can't give it, and again, any less than 9, but I can't see why I can't give it a 10. And in fact, I'm going to, because I can't find a negative.
No, I don't think I've given a 10 for anything yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I think I'll give it 10. I don't know what it's not lacking anything really, is it? It's modern, but it's iconic. It's got history. There's nothing like it with the 2 huge stands. It's just everyone. It's what it's known. It's just everyone knows St James's Park, don't they? It's not at the moment. Has it got a dodgy, weird sponsorship name, or is it back to being just St James's Park?
I mean, even where it has had dodgy sponsorship names, it's never lost being St James's Park, has it? Because it's only ever been Mike Ashley trying to get his companies involved, which
nobody would ever refer to it as Sports Direct Stadium, whatever he's trying. So yeah, it's special, and I think if it's not my first one, I'm definitely going to bring out a 10 for that now.
Well, today's episode is your first 10 of the series, but you've used 2 of them. You'll be pleased to know, because you did value as well. So.
Oh, of course, I'm matching 10 for 10. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wow, 2 10s in one stadium.
So, I mean, this score compared to the rest of the grounds is going to dwarf them. But, I mean, it's a combination of both the ground, but then also the day for us as Luton fans, having travelled around in non-league and then lower League 2 grounds, to then go to St James's Park in a cup tie was unbelievable. For me, one of my favourite days as a football fan, and it deserves to be ranked as that.
Yeah.
And if I ever get the chance to go back to St James's Park, I will happily do it. As a neutral, a home fan or an away fan, it doesn't bother me.
And just for a bit of context about the grounds, we're saying like it's right up there as one of the best grounds we've been to. We've been to grounds separately as well that we both love. Like I know you've been to Villa Park and Anfield, that I'm desperate to get to when we're allowed in football grounds again, and I can't recommend Goodison Park. So that we're talking as a ground we've been to together. We're saying that like Newcastle is right up there, and we've been to some of the iconic grounds across the country. So that's I feel like that is saying a hell of a lot about the place.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of away fans will agree with us. I mean, let us know down below if you've had a different experience. I mean, most people, I can only imagine, are good ones. But maybe if you're a fan of a big club going every year, there's certain things that start to grate on you or things wear off. I don't know. But we've never had the luxury of that experience.
I think, given that I follow quite a lot of Arsenal fans on Twitter, I've heard people like, if you do that away trip every year, and you have they do stick you right up in the heavens, and maybe you feel a bit disconnected from the game, and you want to be. I think most other clubs probably have their away fans in the bottom tier. You could argue that sticking the away fans up there lessens their voice somewhat, maybe dampens the atmosphere. But I think, given it was quite it was a novelty for us. We don't do that trip every season like some Premier League clubs will.
Yeah.
And it felt as a smaller team going up there and being up in the heavens. I think it added to it. in my opinion. But I can imagine that might get a bit annoying year after year.
I would argue that's a positive still, though, because most grounds rely on the away fans for atmosphere, which is why they're close to the pitch. And the fact that Newcastle and Sunderland don't have to do that is, to me, again, another positive for the fans in the North East. And I know they're not going to like it because they don't really like each other, but the people in both cities are friendly. The fans at both stadiums are ferocious. There's no negatives. The North East is the best place to watch football, in my opinion.
Yeah, just need to tick off Middlesbrough now, don't we? Complete the set. And down to Hartlepool and the like. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for the North East.
Absolutely. It's a perfect way to end. And obviously you can let us know if you disagree, but I don't think you're going to do enough to change our opinions, no matter what you say. If you did enjoy this episode, as the overall scores will be down at the bottom, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel for a weekly episode from this series. I think we've got another very special day out coming next. So we'll wait and see for that one. Possibly my favourite ever game, even if not stadium. So that will be an interesting one. And most Luton fans will probably know what's coming based on the alphabet. There's also daily FM20 content on the channel. So subscribe for that too. And hopefully we'll see you next time with my co-host Tom, who I appreciate.
Cheers, everyone.
Have a good one. And thank you very much for joining us.